Hello and welcome each and all to the Lady Boss Show. I am Janise Smith and it brings me great pleasure to be your host. And I'm so glad you tuned in to the Lady Boss TV channel 1. We have a very special guest today. It's the Honorable MPP Mitzie Hunter, former Minister of Education and a powerhouse when it comes to women in politics. She is in the studio with us. So let me just tell you, we have a whole lot of goodness in store for you today. So ladies and the men who love us, sit back, grab your cup of coffee, and spend a little time with me. And when we come back, MPP Mitzie Hunter will be joining us. Welcome back to the Lady Boss Show. We are here with Mitzie Hunter, the MPP for Scarborough-Guildwood. She recently served as the Minister of Advanced Education and Skills Development. And prior to this post, she served as the Minister of Education and the Associate Minister of Finance, responsible for pension reform. Now, Mitzie really does understand our community and the power of working together as a lifelong city builder. She's passionate, and I know this, about unlocking the city's potential by ensuring fair and inclusive access to employment and prosperity. She grew up in Scarborough, graduated from the University of Toronto Scarborough campus with a BA and completed her MBA at the Rothman School of Management. She continues to bring people together to solve problems while creating jobs and opportunities in our community. I am so glad that MPP Mitzie Hunter is joining us today. Welcome, Mitzie.
Thank you for having me, Janise. It's a thrill for me to be here as well.
It's a thrill to have you here. And looking at just the bio and just seeing all what you're doing, it's just amazing. And I know you do it because you absolutely love what you do. But for those many people that don't know, how did you decide to come into politics? What was your reasoning behind it, especially with the background that you have?
Well, Janise, it all started when I was very young. I always was involved in my community, and I would call myself a community builder. So whether, even at university, I was involved in clubs and trying to make a difference in some way. So when I started my professional career, it was natural for me to be a volunteer, to be at the table, to try to make a difference in different ways. And so by the time I was asked to run, I said yes. It was something that was instinctive. I felt it was part of my purpose and reason why I'm here is to really help my community.
So it was timed perfectly.
It was timed perfectly, especially for Scarborough, where I'd grown up in Scarborough, went to high school. It was a place that I had learned and worked and lived.
It's
absolutely,
home,
absolutely. It's home, and I want to make that home better. I want to see improvements to things like public transit, to employment for young people, and giving them opportunities to care for our seniors who really built our province and our country. And so that's why I decided to put my name in when I was asked in 2013 and to run in a by-election.
Yes.
It was also a pretty special moment in Ontario. We had just had the first woman become the premier of the province in the history of Ontario. And so that opportunity to work for a strong female leader was also compelling.
And it's funny because I think it's also a very special moment even now in this time where more and more women are entering into the field of politics. It seems to be that movement where women are wanting to take more of a leadership role. Did you find that to be the trend, that more and more women are trying to enter into the arena of politics?
Well, we see overall that there are more women who are in the legislature than ever before, and that's a really good sign. I think where there is concern is women at the top, women in the leadership role as premier or in at the head of an organization. We're not seeing that consistent movement yet, and there's more work to be done in that regard. But of course, first we have to work on getting more women elected. So more women need to put themselves forward for public office. Yes.
Now, what do you suppose that is in terms of the leadership that we're not seeing it, take off as quickly as perhaps it should? Is it still that it's still, that kind of double standard, or is it that, we are still, just like you said, just getting used to just putting our hat in to start with, and so it will take time? Like, what's your thoughts in that?
I think it's going to take time to change the culture and to shift that culture. And when we think of who is a leader, is it sort of a male figure that we think of, or do we think of the lady boss?
Yes.
And even just what you're doing here today, I think that's making a difference.
Wow.
You're bringing forward strong female voices, women in leadership roles, and giving all of us a chance to really tell our story, which might inspire someone watching.
And that's why I'm doing this show, because I think that first, women, we got stories to tell, and we're on the move, and we're doing such great things. And yes, you're right in that it's still, it's still baby steps. We're still at the beginning stages, but I think the more people that see you in the leadership role, because I mean, MPP Hunter, you became, as you said, into the politics when there wasn't a lot of women in there. Yes, we had Premier Wynne, but we still didn't have that representation. So for you to take that step was a big, bold step that you took as well.
Well, I mean, at the time I was the CEO of Civic Action, and that was, at the time, was my dream job, really helping to shape our region and making sure that there was a strong voice that brought government and business and community together at the same table to make change. But when I entered, I had the privilege of standing on the shoulders of some great women leaders, people like Mary Ann Chambers and Margaret Best, who had run in the same Scarborough East riding and held that riding. So I had that opportunity, but I still had to go to every door and to introduce myself and to really make the case for why they should elect me. What I found was that I loved talking and connecting with people. It was very natural for me.
And I see you in community. I see it's a very natural thing, because when you love people, it's not work. And when you have a passion to make a difference in your community, it's not work. And so that's what I see when you're out there. And I know that there are like women that are up and coming, especially into the political world. What would you say would be the first step of somebody, a recent graduate or high school student that's thinking about becoming becoming an MPP or premier? What is some of the first steps that you would tell them to take?
And we're in the midst of this right now as Liberals across Ontario, rebuilding our party. So we're looking for those young and dynamic and energetic people who want to join the party, who believe in progressive values, who want to make that difference. So get involved. Get involved in your local associations, with your local members, with the clubs on campuses, if there is one, or create one if there isn't. And so there's no end of opportunity for people to become involved.
So create your own lane then.
Create your own lane.
I like that.
And also, find those mentors. I know for me, when I was coming up, there was people like, Alvin Curling. Dr. Alvin Curling always invited me to the table. Even when I was young and starting my career, he said, "You have so much to offer. We need to hear from you."
And he's still very much connected and involved in the community today.
Yes.
So this is great. I want to come back and talk about what you're doing now. I know that you have a lot of programs and initiatives that you're starting that will help women and our community, as you said, seniors. So when we come back, I want to just kind of give the floor to you so you could tell us all about what you're doing and ways that we can perhaps, help with some of those initiatives.
Thank you.
So don't go anywhere, because I'm coming back with the MPP Mitzie Hunter. Let's go fill up our coffee mug and come on back on the other side. And we are back, and beside me is the Honorable MPP Mitzie Hunter. And I got to tell you, I'm really enjoying my time with MPP Hunter. I know you have a busy schedule, so I'm always happy when you could take the time to come and talk to these lady bosses, and of course the men that are with them and watching us. I think it's so important for you to come in and have a conversation. And where we left off, I know you were going to talk a little bit about what's on your plate right now. What are you doing for the community and some of the initiatives that you're doing?
First of all, it's always a great time to spend time with you, Janise.
Oh,
It's
please,
like
mustn't.
it always is. And
You mustn't do those things to me.
you know, I really admire what you do and your
thank
passion
you.
because it just really comes across.
Oh, thank you.
And right now I am really focused on my role. We're in opposition. I'm the critic for finance and treasury, as well as a few other portfolios, including government and consumer services, culture, tourism, and sports. So it's a really a lot to keep track of. But at the same time, it's about fighting for the things that really matter to people. You know, things that make their lives better, like increasing and boosting the minimum wage. You know, that was something that should have come into effect on January 1st, 2019. We know that this government, you know, stopped that, but that's affecting a lot of people's lives in my community in Scarborough. So I'm going to continue to push for that, to advocate for that.
So when you say push, which is great, and push for that, do you think that in the next bill that it's something that if people push loud enough and stand, you know, beside an issue like that, that it will eventually happen?
Well, it could be in a bill, but it also could be giving voice to those advocates and people in the community to say, this is something we need. We want to make sure that when people work, they get a fair wage for that hard work that they're putting in, so they can have money to feed their families and put clothes on their backs.
And you're out there in the community a lot, so is that something that you find that they're saying a lot, that, you know, that this has really affected me in my, you know, like before we were able to do this and now because of this, you find that there's a big outcry for?
Well, we see that. Like, we know that in Scarborough, for instance, food bank use is up. It's up by 87%,
Wow,
right?
I did not know
So that's
that.
a big challenge, is that people need that cash flow. They need to, you know, when they work in a minimum wage job, they want to have enough money to feed their families and have that dignity that comes through work. Literacy is also another area that I'm working on locally in my community to boost the reading levels of children and even adults.
That goes with your
who are
portfolio,
not,
the
yes.
minister, yes.
As the former Minister of
Yes.
Education and Minister of Advanced Education,
Yes.
responsible for training colleges and universities in this province, it is something I'm very passionate about. Equity and inclusive education was something that I worked on when I was Minister of Education, and you know, many groups of students are not graduating at the same rate. So making sure that we provide supports in communities that are needed so that young people have the best chance at life, and we know the power and the importance of education in that.
Yes, and I know that was one of the things that, you know, growing up, that your parents always instilled in you to have, you know, get that education. So now what you're doing is you're delivering that message that your parents gave you to making a difference with some of the initiatives that you're doing.
In my family, it was a constant. You know, we're in this country because we emigrated here from Jamaica when I was a young girl. I was, you know, for about 4 years old, and so that, you know, opportunity was always there, and it's still here, right in Ontario. 120,000 people come to Ontario each and every year for that dream of, you know, making a better life for themselves and their family, just like my family did in the 1970s.
Yeah, and I know our parents, you know, they came here so that we would make a better life for ourselves, and then when we had kids, they would have a better life, you know, living that, as we would say, the Canadian dream, and, you know, so that their sacrifices, because, you know, our parents, they sacrifice so that we could then come and be, you know, better or have better, and then be able to carry on the legacy or the family. So I think that what you're doing with some of those initiatives is really, you know, helping to instill some of the I guess the values that were put in us.
Absolutely, and you know, to encourage the present government to not undo everything that the Liberals did. Like one of the programs we brought in was tuition for OSAP, free tuition for families earning.
I was going to ask about that,
yes.
because you mentioned about, like, you know, that, you know, about the education. Have you seen now a decline in people enrolling because of that program is no longer there? Or?
Well, the program is actually still there.
Okay.
So it was assessed and looked at.
Did they tweak it a little bit though, or it's still basically the same threshold?
It's still there.
Okay.
We want to monitor and make sure that the access is still there for families, particularly on low and middle income families, because we know that they are the ones that are struggling with tuition. We know students are struggling with high debt loads when they graduate. So the free tuition program was really meant to help families and to help students to access those programs. We also know that that helps our economy, because when people have the right skills, they will get the right jobs, they'll create jobs, and our province will be better off.
Well, I know too that our economy is based on lady bosses and people really starting their own business. When you think about Walmart and all those things, they really started from an entrepreneurial spirit that, you know, now is a corporation. So I think what you're doing is so needed, especially to keep our economy going.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have a strong and thriving economy in Ontario. Just recently, the Financial and Accountability Officer provided an assessment. And over the last 4 years, we've actually had some of the highest growths in Ontario's economy. We created some of the most jobs in the last decade. And so that was under a lady boss premier, right? So that leadership and that investment in skills and in new technologies and innovation has helped to create a stronger economy in Ontario.
You know what I'm thinking as you're telling me this, and I want to know where people can get that information, because a lot of times people don't know what you just said. Like like is they like on your website and things like that? Is that where they can keep connected? Because when they hear misconceptions, after a while they begin to think it's reality. But hearing what you're saying about the economy in the last 4 years and what the past government has done, that information has to keep coming out there.
Absolutely. Well, they can certainly go on to my website. We post news releases there. They can just search Mitzie Hunter and find my website. They can also search the Financial Accountability Office's website as well. They post all their reports there. I want to talk about something that's really important to my local community, and it's really the young people and community leaders that came forward to me and said, we need to do something about gun violence. This is an issue that's plaguing our society and causing people to live in fear. I spoke to a group of young people from one of our high schools, and they said, I'm afraid to walk the streets. I'm afraid to take the bus because of gang violence and the threat of gun violence. So I put forward a private member's bill to ban the sale of ammunition for municipalities. Now, the bill didn't pass, but it has driven a conversation about what more we can do to make our community safe. Everyone has that right to live free of gun violence and fear in our community. It's actually an issue of public health, right? When we think about that. So that's something that I'm going to continue to pursue and to find ways of making our community safer.
Now, I wonder, I know that my time is crunching. I could go all day with you, but you mentioned that the bill didn't pass. Is there something that, that we could do collectively, or is there like a petition or, because the concern is still there. As you say, young people are coming up to you and saying they don't feel safe.
Yes.
Is there something that can be done, to move this along?
Absolutely. I would encourage people to go online, go onto my website. They can sign the petition.
So there is a petition?
There is a petition online. They can drop by my office. They can sign a physical petition that I can read out in the legislature. Write to me. That information is very helpful if this issue touches you or any of the issues I've talked about. And that helps as we continue to raise our voices on behalf of the people who believe in progressive values in Ontario.
So, because I want to make sure they know where the website is, in closing, maybe you could just let them know where is that website that they can go to and find out all that great information where they can sign the petition. And of course, you have events of what's coming up because you do so much in community. I know there's an upcoming event in January and February and so on. So where can they go to get the information?
Sure, they can just visit my website, and it's mhunter.mpp.
Perfect.
At Liberal, I believe, is the URL.
You will probably have it. We'll have
on
it
the screen. That you can also follow me on Twitter at Mitzie Hunter.
Okay.
And that's how you get sort of real time information that's posted.
I love that.
My New Year's levy, it will be on January 13th, 2019, at the East Scarborough Boys and Girls Club,
Very nice.
100 Galloway Road.
I should be there. I should be there in community, capturing all those great moments.
It wouldn't be the same without you, so I hope to see you there.
Thank you, and thank you so much for coming. I want to once again thank MPP Hunter for coming and sharing all what's happening in her world.
Thank you.
And please stay connected. As you can see, the website down there where you can find out more about what's going on with MPP Hunter in the next year that's up and coming. So thank you once again. And thank you so much for joining us. I hope you tune in again next time.